Black males make up only about 10% of North Carolina's population, but account for nearly 60% of our state's prison population. 60%. Why? Why do so many of those men end up behind bars?
Officers mistook an African-American teenager for a robbery suspect and handcuffed him. As Michelle Miller explains, the teen was only riding in the car with his white grandmother.
Witnesses say he was just out for a jog, but after San Antonio police stopped a local African-American man, he ended up handcuffed and in the back of their patrol vehicle.
Newly released body camera footage of Los Angeles police arresting a black man who was simply taking out the trash.
The primary driver of this mass incarceration phenomenon is our drug laws, our mandatory minimum sentencing around drug laws.
The United States is facing an extremely alarming problem that needs to be addressed. This is the issue of mass incarceration. The rates of mass incarceration in the United States are rising over the years, and we need to stop and analyze and ask why. In addition to why these rates are rising, we also need to take into consideration who this problem is affecting. It's clear that when it comes to the prison system and incarceration, there's an unsettling amount of inequality that is demonstrated. Mass incarceration in the United States disproportionately affects people of color, specifically African Americans. This imposes limits on people of color's freedom that white individuals do not face. This injustice and inequality in our prison system perpetuates a never-ending cycle of oppression and inequality for people of color, as they are incarcerated at higher rates and often serve longer sentences than their white counterparts. This is a quote that is stated by Martin Luther King Jr. in attempts to call for an end to racism. But, however, many years later, Black Americans still are not free. In the legal system, innocent Black Americans are more likely to be convicted of crimes they did not commit than innocent white Americans. This is seen in the chart with Black Americans being 7 times more likely to be convicted of murder, 3.5 times more likely to be convicted of sexual assault, and 12 times more likely to be convicted of drug-related crimes. Since 1970, our incarcerated population has increased by 700%. 2.3 million people in jail and prisons today, far outpacing population growth and crime. Black people make up 13% of population in the United States, but then make up 40% of the incarcerated rate. Black Americans are incarcerated at 5 times the rate of white Americans in state prisons across the United States. Finally, Black defendants are more likely to be charged with additional charges of resisting arrest than a white defendant.
Now, this is the ring video at the mom's house that shows what apparently happened as one member of the task force brought 17-year-old Kevin Harris outside. You can see another law enforcement officer appears to hit the handcuffed suspect in the face. He fell to the ground. He's screaming. His mom says the incident left him bleeding from the mouth. She now wants the officer she accuses of assaulting her son prosecuted and put in jail.
When we think about justice reform, though, we also think beyond the walls of the criminal justice system. Mass incarceration is profoundly harmful not only for prisoners, but also for children, families, and communities which experience long-term disadvantages. More than half of inmates are parents or minor children. As sentencing laws have become more severe, greater proportions of children, especially children of color, are separated from their parents and for longer periods. According to a 2015 report by Child Trends, 1 in 14 children has experienced parental incarceration. When incarceration disrupts nurturing relationships, innocent children are impacted. Next, many former prisoners struggle with substance abuse or mental health problems. However, treatment is scarce in correctional facilities, and coordinated services after release are even less common and often have significant wait lists. Coupled with a lack of social networks in the labor force, these circumstances make it extremely difficult to secure basic necessities of life, including jobs, housing, and transportation, which are all critical for meeting the conditions of parole.
Mass incarceration affects freedoms and is an infringement on liberty because since charges are not the same for Black male Americans as compared to white males, this leads to the government and legal system dominating one group over the other. More freedoms are infringed upon because of mass incarceration. Incarceration concretely strips individuals of their citizenship through felon disenfranchisement. In 48 states and the District of Columbia, inmates are prohibited from voting while incarcerated. In 32 states, inmates are also disenfranchised when they are on probation or parole. In 14 states, inmates are disenfranchised for life. This policy has dramatically shifted political power towards the white electoral population. Felon disenfranchisement has stripped the right to vote from 1 in every 13 African Americans. As we can see, less Black Americans are receiving the right to vote due to mass incarceration, thus creating an imbalance of power in the electoral process. These laws appear to be designed to infringe on the rights of people of color, and this system needs to be changed. This problem starts at the root. There is no overnight fix or anything close to it. There are many solutions that can help minimize these problems to an extent, but the entire system needs to be looked at in depth for these rates to ever begin to change. Some solutions that touch on fixing the issue with mass incarceration include eliminating incarceration as a penalty for certain classes of low-level, nonviolent offenses, and strengthening cost-effective alternatives to incarceration and drug treatment programs. Some other things that can be done to help this problem is distinguish between the people currently in prison who continue to pose threats to safety and those who are ready to re-enter society. And finally, another idea that may be helpful is to require regular, systemic evaluations of our criminal justice system. Our prison system costs taxpayers $80 billion per year. This money should be spent building up, not further harming communities. Investment, not incarceration. This is how we improve safety. While these solutions may help, unfortunately, they are only scratching the surface.